Hi, I'm Hannah, this is Piles of Books, and today I'm going to be doing the Reader Profile Book Tag. I was tagged in this tag, I guess, by Charlene from Coffee and a Book. If you have not checked out her channel, I would recommend that you do so. She's very well read. She has so many recommendations, and I always find a book or two to add to my TBR. So thank you very much, Charlene, for tagging me in this, and in honor of your channel name, I brought along some iced coffee to sip on while I share my answers for the tag. All right, the first question is, what makes a good book? I think, so for me, what makes a good book for me really comes down to setting. I enjoy a good setting. And I wouldn't say it has to be like overly detailed. It doesn't have to be completely picturesque, but I do want to feel like I'm there with the characters. So a good example of this would be books by Jean Stratton Porter. She definitely makes you feel like you're there. Louisa May Alcott, I'm specifically thinking of Little Women. She makes you feel like you're there. She does a very good job describing the atmosphere of their home and their town and all of that. Like, just, and that's a good, she does a good job, I think, with that. Ella Montgomery is another author who I feel does a really good job describing the setting. What else? Louis L'Amour, like, definitely when you're reading Louis L'Amour, at least for me, I feel like I'm right there with the characters. Actually, that he's probably the author who sticks out to me the most when it comes to setting. I really enjoy the books of his that I have read. I haven't read too many, but the ones I have read, I've really enjoyed, and I think it boils down to mostly just how good his descriptions for the setting of the books are. Just, you feel like you're right there with the characters. What are you currently reading is the next question. Let me see. So I've got Dandelion Wine by Ray Bradbury. This was, I saw this on Dia's channel, and I'm only like 30 pages in, so I can't say too much about it yet, but I have enjoyed it, and I am looking forward to continuing on with this one. And then Give Them Grace by Elise Fitzpatrick and Jessica Thompson. This is a parenting book. It says dazzling your kids with the love of Jesus. And I've only read 3 or 4 chapters in here, but this is an excellent book for sure. I'm really glad that I'm getting around to this one. And I definitely think that if you either have little kids, I mean, I guess probably mostly if you have little kids, this would be the book to read. However, Elise in this book, it's a mother-daughter duo, and Elise is a grandma. So she's mainly writing the book, but she has input from Jessica, who is raising her kids at the time of the book. So anyway, it's a little bit different in that vein, but I have enjoyed that dynamic of it. And so these are the 2 books that I'm currently reading. Hopefully I'll get a lot done through these over the weekend, and I'm enjoying both of them. They're great. What is the last book you DNF'd and why? I think probably that would have been Studies in the Sermon on the Mount by Oswald Chambers. And I did talk about that in a wrap-up video, probably my May wrap-up. I said that it was like a soft DNF at the time because I would like to go back and finish it. I did read it when I was in high school, and I enjoyed it then. I thought it was great. And this was my first time rereading it, but I was in a different like religious setting back then. And just some things about my faith and ideas of God and that sort of thing have changed since I read that book originally. And so I didn't find myself connecting with it as well this last time that I was trying to read it. I don't think it's a terrible book. I just think that just at this time, it's just not for me. The next one is, what obscure book do you wish other people would read? This is a little difficult, I think. I don't really read obscure books, but the one that I did think of was The Shepherd of the Hills by Harold Bell Wright. This book I don't hear very many people talk about ever. So this takes place in the Ozark Mountains. And that's one thing I think I really love about this book is that the setting, I mean, it's just like, you just feel like you're there. The setting is great. The author did a really good job with that. So this takes place in the Ozark Mountains. Like I said, it's about a young woman named Sammy, and then her father, who used to kind of be an outlaw, and he can't completely get away from that life. So we kind of have a little bit of that backstory going on. And Sammy doesn't have a mom. Her mother died, I think, while she was giving birth to Sammy or something. So they have a neighbor family who kind of steps in and helps to take care of her. And at the time of the book, Sammy is a young woman. She is engaged to a young man named Ollie. Ollie goes away to the city to get a job and save money, and he's going to come back and marry Sammy, and then they're going to move to the city together. So while Ollie is away, Sammy kind of learns some things about herself and about the people that she, in her community, and just what it means to be a part of a place. And when Ollie comes back for a visit, she realizes that they're different, and she has to decide between Ollie's life and home. So while all of that is going on, the son of the neighbor family, young Matt, he is in love with Sammy. And so you see him struggling with that because he doesn't want to interfere with Sammy and Ollie, but he does love her. And then also going on, there is an old man. He's the shepherd, and he kind of comes into their world from out of nowhere. Nobody knows his name, nobody knows his backstory, but he does get a job for working for Matt's family. And they befriend him, they help take care of him, and just the way that all of the stories end up connecting in the end is very satisfying. It is a very sweet story. I've read it, I think this was my third time reading it when I read it earlier this year, and I loved it just as much as the first and the second time I read it, and I'm sure that I will read it again in the future and love it just as much then. The next question is, what is the longest book you've ever read? That for me is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. Unfortunately, even though this is still the longest book I've read at 591 pages, but this copy is abridged, and I did not realize that until I was like 2/3 of the way in. So I was reading this with a friend, and she read the full version of it, and just from some of the things that she's talked about from that story, I think I missed a lot. So that's unfortunate. I would like to reread this, but the full version of it at some point. I enjoyed it, but there definitely were some holes in the story that, I don't know that, like, when I was reading it, I didn't realize necessarily that they were holes, but then just, like, talking to my friend about it once we finished the books, I was like, I didn't read that, or I don't remember that person, or anyway, so I liked it enough to want to read the full version, which is, it's a lot more pages than 591, that's for sure. Okay, the next one is, if you could have a dinner party with 5 fictional characters, who would they be? Okay, let me think about this. The first one would be Gandalf, and a lot of the reason for that is because he looks a lot like my dad, and he acts a lot like my dad, and I really enjoy hanging out with my dad, so Gandalf definitely would be one. And it's so funny because my kids, they've never seen the movies, but we have, I've watched some like music videos with them. And when Gandalf comes, the first time that they saw Gandalf in a music video, my kids are like, hey, that looks like Pops. Yeah, I know, it really does. Anyway, so Gandalf, also I think the Harvester from Gene Stratton Porter's book, The Harvester, I really enjoyed his story, and he is very, very knowledgeable about herbs and wildlife and foraging and all of that. So I would really enjoy getting to talk to him about all of those things. Let's see, who else? Actually, I think I would also probably choose Anne and Diana from Anne of Green Gables. When I was growing up, I had a best friend, and I was very much a Diana, and she was very much an Anne, and I have thought, like as an adult, reading the Anne of Green Gables books, I thought, if these women were real, I would I would love to be friends with them as children, but then also as grown women. So that would be fun. I think Anne and Diana. And one more. Boy, that's hard. Rowena from Ivanhoe, maybe. She had a main part in the story, but kind of not at the same time. But I did enjoy her, and she seemed like she knew what she wanted. She was a pretty strong female character. I did enjoy reading her character, so I think she would probably be a fun one to get to know as well. Okay, list 5 books that you would want to have with you if you were stranded on a desert island. The first one would be my Bible. I would take my Bible. I also think that I would take my 1828 dictionary, which is a really big book, but I enjoy looking at the dictionary and learning new words, and that would be a good way to pass the time too. I feel like an obvious answer would be like a survival book, but I don't own any survival books that would like translate well to a deserted island. So I don't know. I might just take a chance that I could figure it out. I'd probably take some bind-ups like my Jane Austen bind-up. Maybe this Charlotte and Emily Bronte complete novels bind-up. But maybe I would also take like a Louis L'Amour bind-up, just because that's a little bit different. You know, these are going to be a bit more the same. And Louis L'Amour can be kind of educational too. You might learn some survival skills from him. So that's probably what I would do. I have a few of those that I could choose from. And I would probably take my Shakespeare bind-up. It's in the other room, and I've got a sleeping kid in there, so I'm not going to grab it, but I do have a big Shakespeare bind-up. So let's see. I would take my Bible, a dictionary, my Shakespeare bind-up, probably my Jane Austen bind-up, and then since I don't own any like deserted island survival type books, I would maybe do a book of poetry. So I'm not sure what that would be, but probably a book of poetry. All right, what is one book that you could not put down? Most recently, I would say Jayber Crow by Wendell Berry. I had a hard time putting that one down. I will talk about that one in my next video, my June wrap up. I really enjoyed that. Another one that it would be North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. I actually listened to this on audio, and I only listen to audiobooks when my kids are not around, because you know, when they are around, I want to be giving them my full attention. So I mean, I will like do work on the computer or read a book or something while they're around, but I don't want to just be having an audiobook going because my kids are little, and so I want them to know that they can, you know, ask me a question and it's not going to interrupt my story. If I had been reading the print book of that, I would have not been able to put it down. I did read like the first 12 chapters, I think, and then I read the last 3 chapters. And of those, you know, about 15 chapters that I read, I did have a hard time putting it down. But yeah, so that is one. I really enjoyed the audiobook, and I'm sure I would have had a super hard time putting it down if I had been reading the print version. All right. List 5 books or authors that you will never read. This is hard because I can't really think of any like classic fiction authors that I would never read. I'm sure there are some. I'm looking at my shelf. And obviously, like, if I have them on my shelf, I'm probably gonna read them. I don't know. That I should have done some research into this one. I'm not interested in reading like Sarah J. Maas or Mass. I'm not sure how to say her name. Not interested in reading those books. Or like anything along those lines. I'm not interested in reading like contemporary thrillers that are just creepy. Like, I have no desire to read that kind of stuff. But I can't really think of like specific books or authors. I just don't really keep up on that kind of stuff, I guess. So that was kind of a dead answer. But yeah, I don't know. I can't really think of anything specifically. Okay, the last question is, if you were to write a book, what would it be about? So this is kind of an interesting question. I have some book ideas in my mind. I just haven't figured out how to go about actually writing them. If I were to write a book, it would be nonfiction, and it would be about some topics that are just very close to my heart. So one book idea I have is about like grief, specifically pregnancy loss, even more specifically ectopic pregnancy. I've had 2 of those, and there's just not a lot of resources for dealing with the grief of those. So that would probably be, that's the one that I'm most working on in my mind. And then another one would be leaving a cult. Yes, those would be if I were to write a book, it would, one of those would be the topics that I would choose. Alright, so there are my answers for the reader profile book tag. Thanks again to Charlene for tagging me in this video. I enjoyed watching her video and just hearing all of her answers. It was a lot of fun. So I would encourage you to check out her video and then also just her channel in general. So if you'd like to answer these questions in the comments below, that would be great. I would love to know, especially which 5 fictional characters you would invite to a dinner party. That would be a lot of fun. Thanks again for being here. We will see you in the next video.